overview of the CADGE program and include class management strategies to integrate fun, structured physical activities that give all students opportunities to practice and participate. Activity strategies will include class activity distancing and distance learning strategies for PE. Our two presenters are Joey Walker, CADGE Curriculum Director and Training Manager, as well as Shana Green, the CADGE Curriculum Implementation Manager. So welcome and take it away, ladies.
Awesome. Thank you, Tilsa. Really appreciate it. And good morning, Janet. Hopefully this will be your kind of own private catch session at the moment. But if other folks join us, they can just kind of go join us in progress. So I don't know much about your background, but whether you're new to education or a veteran, one thing's for sure, this school year is going to be unlike any other. And so as Tilsa said, in this session, we're really going to highlight some real world practical strategies to address specifically physical education in the COVID era. So we're going to offer ways that educators can and PE teachers can maximize their impact on students' activity and education, whether they are in a gym or in limited space or in a virtual learning situation. So let's go ahead and dive in. So first, let me just give you a quick introduction into the CADGE program. CADGE stands for Coordinated Approach to Child Health. All it is a basic resource or a tool that schools can use to help create and maintain and support a healthy environment. CADGE is aligned with the whole school framework promoted by ASCD and the CDC. And the reason the environment is so important is because environments are set up to value and reward and kind of influence behavior. And if we think about it, who creates environments for students and for kids? It's us, it's the adults, right? And so if we create and support healthy learning environments for our students, their behavior is going to follow and ultimately that'll be what they take with them as they get older. I mentioned the whole child approach, and hopefully you're familiar with that, but if not, just give you a quick background information on it. It's an effort to focus on the long-term development and success of all kids, rather than just focusing on the narrow scope of academic achievement. It's really a collaborative effort involving not just schools and the teachers and educators within the schools, but also involving the family and the community at large. With the growing body of evidence linking health and learning, this model focuses on integrating these and really recognizing the need for all sectors of the school to play a part in this effort. As a note, this approach and the things we'll talk about today are applicable whether you are in person going back to school or if you're in a virtual learning situation. The 5 basic tenets or pillars of the whole child approach are healthy, safe, engaged, supported, and challenged. So we want to create healthy and safe environments for our kids to learn in. We want to actually engage them in the learning process, support them, and then challenge them through that whole process. You may have heard or be familiar with the phrase Maslow before Bloom. That's been kind of going around for a while now, but it's been kind of echoed louder and louder this school year just because of the pandemic and because of all the needs of our students. And so basically, it simply refers to the idea that a child's basic human needs has to be met first in order for them to be able to really learn and engage with the curriculum. So as you can see, the whole child framework is perfectly aligned with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is going to help schools address the needs of the whole child first and foremost, so that we can ensure those optimal conditions for learning and really getting our students back to thriving. I mentioned the research supporting healthy kids are better learners. Well, the evidence is there and it's been growing. Healthy kids perform better academically, they have better cognitive skills, and they have better education behavior, which means they're actually in school, they attend school more, have less absences, they have less classroom disruptions, and better just classroom behavior overall. And I'm going to quickly share with you just a couple of data points that we've collected that we really like. This first one is one of our favorites, which shows composite brain scans of different individuals. And on the left side, you see a brain scan of someone after they've just been sitting quietly. So we know that after 20 minutes of sitting, blood pools away from the brain. And as you can see, there's not a whole lot of activation going on in that particular child's head right there. On the opposite side, on the right side, you see all the activation of a brain scan after someone who's just been moderately active. So just after 20 minutes of walking, and you can see how much more activation there is. So I always just like to ask teachers, which kid do you want in your class? Which one do you want to be teaching? Chances are it's going to be the one on the right that has a little bit more activation and more alert and ready to kind of pay attention and learn what you're going over. The next graph is basically just better nutrition equals better grades. Compared to kids that have lower grades, students with higher grades are more likely to have better nutrition habits, better diets. So they tend to eat breakfast more days of the week. They eat fruit or vegetables as opposed to other foods, and they tend to drink more water and milk rather than sugar sweetened beverages. And then this next one is basically showing the more fit kids are, the less school that they miss. So if you can see on the left-hand side of the graph, those are the kids not passing very many fitness indicators on the fitness gram. The kids that are passing the most fitness indicators miss half as many days, which can translate to our administrators as, hey, we can get those kids present and accounted for in school, and which actually comes down to kind of those funding dollars, which are so important. So really, we just kind of want to be advocates and help strategize and work with schools to really not just put health on the side, but really give it more emphasis and build that time within the day to incorporate physical activity and health, because it doesn't take away from academics. In fact, it enriches and enhances it. So some of the benefits of integrating specifically physical activity during the school day, like I said, brain function goes down after sitting for just 20 minutes. Also, aerobic activity literally grows brain cells. There's research to show that it's basically miracle grow for the brain. And physical activity brings more blood to the brain. That's where they get that activation. They're more alert and engaged with the curriculum or whatever your lesson you're going over. And then something very to keep in mind now during COVID, when we have more anxiety, more stress in our lives and in our kids' lives, physical activity is literally the cheapest anti-anxiety or antidepressant out there on the market. So it can actually help reduce stress and anxiety for kids and adults. And then if you think about our educators and differentiating instruction within their classroom, 85% of school-age kids are kinesthetic learners. So if we're actually integrating physical activity during class time, we're actually differentiating our instruction so that we can reach all different types of learners in our classrooms. And then also it just helps build classroom community. And again, we can build that classroom community whether we're virtually or in person by incorporating these kind of physical activity and health topics. And we're actually going to kind of practice what we preach right now. And I'm going to take you through, even though we can't see you, Shana and I are going to be participating, and maybe Tilsa will get up with us, who knows. But we're actually going to do a quick little group activity. So when I say go, kids, go ahead and stand up and push your chair out of the way or wherever you happen to be situated, and give yourself a nice big bubble of space so that you can be active in self-space safely. Ready? Go. In this activity, you might need to readjust your camera a little bit, but in this activity, you are going to need a cone. That cone can be anything that you have handy. So if you actually have a cone handy, that's perfectly fine. I'm gonna use my stuffed kangaroo, my little Joey, for Joey. That's gonna be my cone, and you're just gonna place that right in front of you on the table or a chair. And in this activity, you're going to be listening for different movement cues. The movement cues are going to be head, shoulder, knees, and cone. When I say cone, you are trying to be the quickest reaction time and grab that cone and show it to the camera. Now, Janet, and if you want to play, what you can do is use your reaction and give me a thumbs up to let me know you grabbed that object, okay? All right, ready? When I say go, everybody's gonna get in a nice ready position, and then we'll start the game. Ready, go. So here's our ready position, and we'll start slow at first. Head, knees, shoulders, knees. Let's go faster. Shoulders, knees, shoulders, head, shoulders, knees, cone. Grab that cone. Ooh, there you go. I think Tilsa beat you, Shana. Nice job. All right, let's go a little bit faster. Here we go. Ready? Ready position, and head, shoulders, head, shoulders, head, knees, shoulders, cone. Grab it. Boom. Ooh, that was all a tie. That was pretty good. Nice job. All right, now that's all fine, well, and good. And we're kind of active, we're up. But if we wanted to increase the activity level, we could do that just by now. Your movement cues are going to be left, and you're gonna step left, come back, right, you're gonna step right, come back, up, you're gonna go up on your tippy toes, or you can jump up if you're jumping today, or down is going to be a squat. All right, so ready position, and when I say go, fast feet. So you're gonna be moving your feet up and down so we get that heart rate going. Okay, ready? And left, left, up, down, down, and cone. Boom, Shana beat you that time. All right, y'all can go ahead and have a seat. Now that's a great activity. It's a really popular catch activity, but what we modified it to use in our virtual environment, so we can play just like that with those modifications. We can also use it to play in our new kind of COVID era where we are being physically distant. So we can, we normally play it with two kids paired up. There's a cone in between them. They're listening to those movement cues. They're trying to be the quickest one to grab the cone. We don't want to do that anymore because we can't have kids too close together. We don't want them sharing equipment, but we can modify that, have them 6 feet apart, give them both a cone or some other object, still play the game the exact same way. And we can also do this in the classroom if we are in limited space by having those kind of cone replacement objects. It can be just a balled up piece of paper. It can be a pencil, whatever you want it to use. And then they're just listening to your cues and trying to be the quickest one to grab it and to show it to the class. So all sorts of different variations for how you could use this activity. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Shana, my colleague Shana, to take us through kind of the meat and taters part of the presentation. Shana?
All right, thank you so much. So Joey did a really good job of kind of highlighting, what Catch is, and then also that whole child model, and how Catch really is just that resource to help you teach to the whole child. And now we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into physical education, physical activity, and how we can do this how we can do that well at this time. So whether that's if you're virtual, in person, how can we do those things? The first thing that we are really telling our PE teachers and just everyone in this world is that we need to advocate for health and wellness at this time. Physical education and physical activity, our kids are needing those things. And so we really want to make sure that we're advocating for that and making sure that it's a big part of the school campus and culture, wherever we are and whichever district we're working with. We know that physical education teaches students to build a healthy immune system, and that is key at this time. So we want to make sure that they're getting that every day. We also know that physical education helps with that whole child approach. So when Joey was mentioning those 5 tenets, really that key of being safe and being healthy. And so we want to make sure that we are having safe and healthy kids in our campuses. We also want to meet the social emotional needs of our students, and that is something that physical educators do very well. We've been teaching SEL concepts for many years. When we talked about being good sportsmen, sportsmanship and teaching all those things. So it's important to tap into those physical educators and help them lead SEL efforts on your campus. Also, it teaches and reinforces our self-care practices, and that is going to be helpful not only for the students this year, but also for the teachers. So having those physical educators really rally around your teachers and having self-care activities, such as we heard one school that was doing a run all together. They're doing like a virtual run, or having SEL ideas for your teachers, but really helping teachers identify and do self-care. So what are our students are going to need? We're kind of in a different world right now. So what is it that our students need most and need now? Definitely that emphasis on enjoyment and connection. So we want to make sure that when they're participating in physical activity, whether that's virtually or in person, that they are having fun. We also want to make sure that we're helping them to connect with one another. One thing is for sure, being in a computer is a little bit different than being in person. And so our students are really missing that connection. And so there's a couple of things that we can do to help them connect with you as the teacher, as well as with their classmates. We want to make sure that we're highlighting that SEL, all those SEL concepts. And then also we want to be trauma informed. All of us are kind of facing our own trauma at this time. And so we want to make sure that we're using trauma informed instruction whenever we're working with students. And we'll talk about that a little bit today and model some mindfulness that can be helpful. We also want to emphasize physical activity and fitness. So right when they get back, we want to make sure that we're getting our kids up and moving. We've been in front of a screen a lot this year, and so it's important that we focus on those things. And then also skill development for individual games and those lifetime activities. So things like basic movement concepts, balance, which also will help with academics, focusing on those things, the skills that they will need for lead up games later down the road when we get back to those team sports. So Catch has a couple of objectives that we strive for whenever we are participating in PE. Number one, we want to make sure that students are enjoying physical activity. Number two, we want to make sure that students are involved in MVPA, so moderate to vigorous physical activity, for 50% of the class time. So that means we want them up and moving at least 50% of that time, not so much listening to instruction or transitioning, but really getting the benefits of physical activity. And we do this by having active transitions, by keeping our instructions really concise and those things. Now this is still a lofty goal now with all the physical distancing in place and also being virtual, but it's something that we should still strive for as physical educators. We also want to make sure that students are provided with many opportunities to participate and practice our skills. And we want to make sure that we're encouraging participation in physical activity other times. So not just when we're seeing our students, but also when they're away from us, whether they're at home or, teaching them and empowering them to get groups together to play on a playground or at parks. All of those things are important. So really sending that message home. So we have a couple of basics, and these basics are just some classroom management techniques that you can use. And when you use these, you kind of, you know that you're meeting all of those objectives that we have. So the first one is boundaries and routines. And those of you that have been teaching for a while, you know how important it is to set those boundaries and routines early in the year and to practice them. That's going to help you have those active transitions. That's going to help you reduce any kind of behavior problems that you might have. So we keep kids understanding what their routine is each and every day, which is also considered trauma-informed instruction. So if we have the same boundaries, routines, and structures in place at all times, it eases anxiety and students know exactly what to expect when they're with us. We also want to make sure that students have activity from the get-go. So immediately when we see them, we are getting them up and moving. We want to have consistent stop and start signals. I like to use a countdown. So counting really loud, 3, calming down, 2, and then 1, where you bring the chaos down to a whisper. Having that in place and practicing it is key and is going to be really important this year, just so we can make sure we're following all safety guidelines. We also want to make sure that we're having involvement by all. We want everyone to feel successful when they're in our class. We want to use concise instructional cues. As a teacher and coach, I get really passionate about things that I'm talking about. And so sometimes I tend to overspeak. And while I'm doing that and giving all these great instructions, that means students are quiet and they're listening. They're not getting that activity that we really want them to get. So we want to make sure that we have very concise instructions. And then the last one is supervision and safety. So when we're very familiar that when we're in person with our students, we need to be on the ball, walking around, you know, checking for any issues that might arise. We're going to also need to be watching for physical distancing. And then also in a virtual world, we need to make sure that we're being safe too. We're asking the kids to make sure they have a safe place. We're giving those disclaimers as they are participating in physical activity at home, and maybe even outside of that. Okay, next. So language of instruction, Catch has its own little language that helps out quite a bit. One is the when before the what. So saying when I say go and then give the instructions can be really helpful. Also physical distancing. So remember, we're going to have to remind the kids often to create a bubble or personal space around themselves to keep themselves safe. Also social emotional learning and mindfulness. And we're going to do a really quick mindfulness technique right now because I want to show you how easy it is to implement. And I just want to let you know that mindfulness is for everyone and it's so important. Okay, so hold up your fist with me just like this for those of you that I can see. Perfect. We're going to take 5 quick sips of breath through our nose as we count to 5 on our hand. Once we get to 5, we're going to breathe out slowly through the mouth and close our hand. Ready? And go. Breathing in. Exhale slow. Let's do that again. Breathing in through the nose. Exhale slow. Last time, breathing in. Exhale slow. Excellent job. So in 15 seconds, we've kind of calmed our body and helped us to be more present. And that's what mindfulness is. It's just being very present and in the moment. All of us have this kind of to-do list that's running through our mind at all times, or we're multitasking, and the kids are the same way. So having these little moments of breathing and being mindful is key. That's also considered trauma-informed teaching. So if we can refocus our child and move them onto something else, that's a great skill to have, whether you're teaching in a classroom or in a gym. So when you teach these things up front, these breathing techniques, then you have them in your toolbox when you need them. The next one, catch them being good. So we want to make sure that we are, again, rewarding and valuing those healthy behaviors. With Catch, we eliminate elimination games. So games where students are tagged out and they go and they sit the rest of the time, we want to eliminate those because those are the students who really need to be up and moving. So instead, we have something called a re-entry task and a re-entry zone. A task is a really brief little task that they can participate in to get back into the playing area. And a re-entry zone is a safe place where they can go and do that task. So just remember that when you're creating these re-entry tasks and zones, we need to keep physical distancing in mind and make sure that students have plenty of space. We also want to be creative with our competition. So instead of always have the winners against losers or pitting our kids against each other, let's be creative with it. Let's have the students versus the teacher. Let's have the class work together to beat a time. Let's have students try to beat their personal best. So giving them a variety of ways to compete can be really healthy for our students. And then also nutrition, information, and integration. We want to make sure that we're really talking about go slow, whoa foods, whether we're in the gym and throughout our lessons. All right, a couple of other things about instructions. I'm going to go through this one pretty quickly. We want to make sure that we're emphasizing the fun. In the catch world, we say if it ain't fun, it don't get done. So we want to make sure that we're having fun. It's fun for the students and the teachers. We want to highlight the benefits of physical activity. We want to make sure that we're constantly being safe. So again, those are using those disclaimers, checking the space, making sure that students are in a safe area for activity. We want to make sure we're using positive reinforcement. That is another tool. So if you're saying, you know, I love how Joey's listening and she's taking notes, all of a sudden you see other students listening and taking notes. So use that positive reinforcement as a tool to encourage students to participate. Encourage activity outside of the school. Again, that creative competition that we mentioned. And also, we want to really make sure that we're focusing on equity. So we're ensuring that there's access for all of our lessons. We want to make sure that we're including all students, that we're not focusing just on our athletes, that we're focusing on everyone and giving them the opportunity to, again, participate and be highlighted as our demonstrators. All right, and like Joey said, we practice what we preach. So she is going to lead us in an activity called Balance Cone Crazy.
Right, Cone Crazy is one of our again, another popular catch game that we use, and it involves lots of cones all over the place and kids crossing paths, going here, there, and everywhere, and a lot of activity. So that's something that we're going to be a little bit challenged with doing in this school year. So we've modified it to make it a balance activity, and there's research to support that balance activities and having better balance increases cognitive abilities in kids and adults. And it is also something that we can use in limited space and in self space. So if we find ourselves having to maximize our distance and stay in one place, this is one. So we'll just do a couple of quick variations. So when I say go, kids, go ahead and stand up, push your chair out of the way, and then you are going to need another cone substitute. But this time your cone needs to have a kind of a right side up and a right side down. So it could even be a phone. It could be, I have just my little plastic cup here. It can be a stuffed animal, whatever you want. Ready? Go. And then I am going to kind of just modify my camera just so that you can see. And instead of using the ground, I'm just going to use it on this cardboard box so that you can see it. So everybody's going to start with their cone on its side or in the down position. Hopefully it doesn't roll away too much. All right, maybe not. I'm going to use my stuffed animal instead. All right, so when I say go, everybody's going to balance on their right leg, on your right leg. And then we are going to go for 20 seconds, and you are going to see how many hand castles. So instead of sand castles, these are hand castles. And how you're going to do this is you're going to do a single deadlift. So you're going to balance on that right leg. You're going to bend down. Ooh, I need to work on my balance. And then you're going to set the cone upright, come back. That counts as one. Then you're going to stay on that same leg, knock it down again, 2. So you count every time that you stand up your cone and put it down. Ready? 20 seconds and go. Kids can use their desk if they need to maintain balance. Couple more seconds. And stop. All right, if anybody did that, put it in the chat. How many did you get? How many did you get? I only got 8, so did you beat the teacher? Shana beat the teacher, nice job. All right, so again, everything that we're showing you here today are ways that you can modify activities to use for whatever scenario that you find yourself in, whether you're in person, in limited space, or virtually. Lots of different modifications that we can still use and get these kids up and active in valuable activities. Back to you, Shana.
All right. Okay, so we're going to talk about an in-person scenario. So once teachers are back in the schools, which I understand most schools in New York are there, we're going to go over just a couple of things. One, all the organizations that we've been working with as we've been planning these trainings, they're all recommending that we go outside whenever possible. So as much as you can, if you have space outside, get students up and outside. I do know that that's going to be difficult, especially with the weather changing. So we do have some ideas for inside as well, but as much as you can get outdoors, get there. We're going to see is a reduction in class sizes. So our classes will be much smaller. If your school to reduce your class sizes, then it's going to be important that you keep those homerooms separate from one another. We want to make sure that we're preparing for limited space. So even though you might still have a pretty good activity area, kids are going to actually be participating in activities that have limited space. So we're going to focus on some of those things. We also want to minimize equipment and establish disinfecting routines. So when you first start, we really recommend that we use very little, if no, equipment. And that's just because it's another piece have to manage once you start using equipment. We also know that we need to establish disinfecting routines. So all the equipment, CDC recommends that it is first washed with soap and water and then it's sanitized. Also know that those pieces of equipment that are made of hard plastic are going to be safest and easiest to sanitize. So those hard frisbees. Those things are going to want to be the things that we bring back first. Scarves, noodles, anything that's porous is a little bit harder to clean and usually needs to sit out for several days after it's been wiped down and disinfected. Also, we want to make sure that when we're teaching our procedures, which is going to be really important this year, that we're focusing on fun and we're using it in active ways, and we'll give you some ideas on that. So a couple of procedures that will help you minimize the transmission of COVID-19. First, we know that teachers and students will be wearing face coverings. Students will need to see your face when you're teaching. So even though you're going to have that cloth mask on for a good portion of the time, you want to also have a shield so that you can move your mask to be able to speak to the students. We have lots of different shields available, but I will tell you, after looking at a ton of them, the one that Joey is showing right now is our favorite. So it's connected to some glasses right here, and it sits really nicely on your face and it doesn't move. So that's going to be great for physical educators. Another one of my favorites is this one right here, where they've taken a hat and they've put the shield on the hat. So that's just another creative way that you can have your face shield and keep yourself safe. The ones that sit on your head that we're seeing a lot of people use, those work as well, but they move quite a bit. And so it's definitely not going to be the first one we recommend. This is also a great time to ask for a microphone or sound system. So your voice is your livelihood, and you need to make sure that you protect it. Shape America has put out some documentation on how important it is that you have some kind of sound amplification. So getting something like that would be great. Also, teach your students to respond to nonverbal cues. So if they need to go to the restroom, water, all of those things are going to be important. Make sure we're organizing our space that will maximize physical distancing, which we'll talk about soon, and also managing that equipment effectively. And that just means knowing how you want to set up your class periods. Maybe it is that everybody's working on throwing and catching, but they're all throwing and catching different things each class period, or maybe you just want to have a different unit each class period. So some of our physical educators are finding themselves teaching in the classroom. Some of that is because of limited space, but it's also because a lot of schools are choosing to keep the students in a cohort. And so they're staying in the classroom all day, and the classroom teachers are the ones rotating. If that's the case, still try to take those kids outside if possible. But if you are going to be inside, then just know that to be creative and fun with the things that you're coming up with. We've seen one teacher, they came up with an idea of taking a pencil and flipping it to the front of the desk, running around and trying to catch it before it hits the ground. So just thinking of creative ways that you can get kids up and moving in the classroom are going to be important. Use the things that are there, because we're already going to have little to no equipment. Use their pencils, do push-ups on the desk, dips on the chairs, come up with ways to use that equipment. Also make sure that you have a sanitation cart so you can clean your hands as you're going from class to class, and then always anchor the activity with a calm movement or reflection so that they're ready for academic time as well. Just a couple of other suggestions while you're in that limited space or classroom. Keep the structure. So it's really important that in PE we have a structure in place. We teach a warm-up, we teach a lesson, and then we have a cool-down piece. And when we keep that structure in place, it will help us be creative with the ideas that we bring. And it'll also help with that trauma-informed instruction again, because no matter where the students see you, they know what to expect. There's also two different ways that you could teach. There's the traditional way where you teach and practice and you're giving those cues. And then there's also something called a flipped classroom approach. And this flipped classroom idea is where you do demonstrations, you do all the key concepts. So all the teaching is happening, but then students are actually practicing those things when they're away from you. And they can record videos and they can send it back to you for feedback. So if I want my class to work on throwing and catching, but we're not able to do that in a classroom, I could still demonstrate it and go over those key concepts and let them practice it at home. So a couple of other suggestions we have if you're going to be in that limited space or in that classroom. Use rhythms, balance activities, activity breaks, and mindfulness. So activity breaks are usually made and created for classroom teachers to use in the classroom. One of the things that I love about the PE teacher teaching these when you're in a classroom is, one, you are demonstrating for the classroom teacher how easy it is to get kids up and moving in a classroom, and they will be more likely to try those activity breaks. You're also teaching your students these activity breaks, so they will start asking for them by name. So seeking out out, activity breaks would be a great thing to use in this limited space. And then also just mindfulness activities and really checking in on our health and wellness, doing a wellness wheel, all those things would be great ideas as well. And utilize nutrition lessons. Really, you can have plenty of time to go through that while you're in that classroom and having that in an active way. So real quick, we're going to do an activity session, and this is going to be very, very brief because we're short on time, but I do want you to see that we can get up and moving whether we're in front of a computer or if we were standing at a desk in a classroom. So when I say go ahead and stand up and make sure you have plenty of space for movement, okay? Ready? And go. Go ahead and stand up, check your area. Perfect. So our instant activity today is called 10-second fitness. And this is a fitness challenge activity between the students versus the teacher. We could also increase it, so it could be 20 seconds if we're working with older students. That fitness activity can be anything we want, but for today we're gonna work on plyometrics, so we're jumping side to side over a line, okay? All right, I'm gonna get some music on. So with this activity, I am going to go first. So I will be jumping side to side and you'll count for me. And then we're gonna switch and you'll jump side to side, I'll count for you. All right, music's on. It is my turn first, 10 seconds and count. And stop. All right, how did I do? 7? Okay, got it. All right, your turn. Ready? And go. 10 seconds. And stop. All right. Nice. She did beat the teacher. So in this case, you would have students versus teacher, and we have our students all over, and we would get to check on them and see how they're doing. We would also change that up. So instead of jumping side to side, we would jump front to back. We could try to beat our last score. So lots of fun variations that you can do in that 10-second fitness. Now we're going to move to our lesson, which is called solo catch. So go ahead and grab a ball. Okay, if our students are at home, they might not have a ball, but they could roll up some aluminum foil. They can grab some paper to create a ball. Okay, in solo catch, we're just going to toss and catch with our right hand. Ready, go. Toss and catch. Great job. And I can watch for those key things, making sure that students are tracking with their eyes, keeping that palm up. Good. And stop, hold that ball to your chest. And now we're going to switch to the left hand. Ready, and go. And right now we're just doing a toss, self-toss, but we could also be throwing to a target. We could do ball handling with our feet, lots of different things you can do here. Now, in order to add it up and give some variety, we are now going to toss the ball up and clap. I want to see how many times you can clap before you catch the ball. Okay, ready, and go. Throw it up, clap, 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 clap. Throw it up. Good job, and stop. Okay, variety is really important, and so is self-choice. I just see that Joey got 5, so perfect job, Joey. She hit our goal. So some choice. So now we're going to let our students choose how they want to throw and catch, all right? Ready, and go. You can throw and catch any way you want. So Joey's doing it behind the back. We get some students that do rainbow, but really giving them that choice and highlighting them can be key. And we can do that in person, or we can do it in a Zoom kind of scenario. All right, and go ahead and stop. Last one I want to show you is a assessment. So if we're assessing on the computer, we can do a throw and catch 10 times, and we can see how successful we can be with those 10 catches. Okay, we're going to pretend that Joey just finished her 10, and she's going to go into the chat box, and she's going to write how she did. So 10 out of 10, 8 out of 10, and then as the educator, you can save that chat, and then you have a recording or a record of those grades that you need. All right, go ahead and have a seat, and we are going to anchor this with a cool down, and our cool down is going to be a mindfulness breathing technique, just like earlier, okay? This one is called 5 senses breathing, the 5 senses. So we're going to breathe in through the nose for 3 seconds and then out through your mouth for 3 seconds. We're going to breathe in like we're smelling a flower. We're going to breathe out like we're blowing out a candle. All right, ready? Deep breath in for 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 3, 2, 1. Deep breath in, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 3, 2, one. Good. Go ahead and close your eyes, and I want you to listen for the sounds. Could be a fan, the air conditioner, birds outside. Good. And when I ask you to open your eyes, I want you to focus on something that brings you joy. Ready? Open your eyes, focus on that thing that brings you joy. Take a deep breath in through the nose and exhale. Perfect. Okay, so again, that mindfulness, just slowing things down and letting students be more present is going to be key. And then also tapping into that enjoyment is also really important too. So a couple of tips for engaging our students. We want to make sure that when we're repeating things or we're playing a game, that we're adding a twist and we're changing it up to keep our kids engaged and on their toes. We want to engage in their creativity. Young students, they really want to be creative. Pretend that we're superheroes. You could tell a story and they could model it with yoga movements. So giving them that opportunity is going to be key. Older students care a lot about self-choice, and they care about self-expression. So giving them lots of options, allowing them to lead, all of those things are great ways to encourage them. We also want to have several short activities, and that's any way that you're teaching, you want to make sure that you have those several short pieces involved, and that's going to help with buy-in. They're going to want to participate, and it's going to help just move things along faster. We want to make sure that you as a teacher, you're participating with your students. They miss you and they miss that connection. So as much as you can participate with them is going to be key. Using music and rhythm is also very motivating. And then make sure that we're always using positive praise. Catch always stays on that positive. Okay, so whenever we're in person, there are some different ways that we can set up our gym to make sure that we're maximizing physical distancing, but still be able to teach some fun and engaging activities. One of these is grids. So when students first get to school, we want to have them just kind of spread out in safe spots that are 6 feet away from everyone and have them know that this is their spot and they're going to be safe here and ready for physical activity. We can work on fitness skills here, all of those things that we mentioned before. You're then going to teach them that they have an elbow-to-elbow partner, and now they can do partner work. So rock, paper, scissors games, ball handling, any of those things with that partner. When we played cone reaction, this could be their cone reaction buddy. Then point out that not only do they have a partner, but they have like a little team or a little, some schools call them families, and that's their grid. So within this grid, they can now play small-sided games. Grids and grid management is going to be important if there was a breakout in the school. So if there was some kind of breakout and they were doing contact tracing and they came to you and said, I need to know who Joey was playing with. If you were using grids, you would be able to tell them exactly who Joey was with every single day that she was in the gym. This also allows you to play individual games, partner games, and then truly playing like small-sided activities, such as soccer, where 2 of them become goalies and the other 2 are fighting over possession of the ball and then have to cross the line with the ball. So you see that once we teach our students how to use these grids, the sky's really the limit on what we can do. Okay. All right, and as we kind of come to a close, I want to leave you with a tool that you can use to really assess your program and come up with when to teach lessons. So if you've been teaching for a while, then you already have your scope and sequence. You know the activities that your students love and that you love to teach. And the good news is you don't have to remove those games. We just want to assess the risk of them and find ways to lower the risk so that you can use those games and activities. You can see on the chart what your low risk activities are, things like not using equipment, playing outside, lots of space between students. Your some risk, that means you're playing inside. Students are breathing pretty heavy, so there could be transmission of the virus. And we're a little bit closer. High risk activities, students are moving really close together. They're using equipment, so those are high risk of transmission. So now what you need to do is really think about your activities and kind of where they fall in line on this risk page, our risk tool. Right here, we're seeing a bunch of different catch activities and where they fall in the risk. Now, as catch, we're not suggesting all your games have to be in this low risk activity, but what we are saying is use the data from your community, what your administration is asking from you, and then you can really assess where you need to be on this risk level. Now, let's look very quickly at a high risk activity and how to lower the risk. So if I was playing Dragon Tail, which was one of our favorite catch games. It's a game where you have a scarf in the waistband of your pants and you're trying to grab everyone's scarf. At the same time, you're trying to dodge others so they don't grab yours. There's a lot of crossing. Everybody's breathing heavy. It's a lot of fun, but it's definitely a high-risk activity. In order to lower the risk but still keep that game or something similar, we could cut noodles in half and we could play a noodle tag game where we were having social distancing and tagging with that noodle. Students are going to their re-entry zones, which are really far apart, before they come back in. So we're lowering the risk. To make it even lower, we could take the activity outside. Instead of tagging each other with an implement, we could step on each other's shadows. So as we're running around, we're stepping on shadows in order to get others out. So you can see where you can take a high risk activity and lower it. Same thing with soccer. Soccer game would be high risk. But if you're just working with a partner and doing passing back and forth, that's some risk. And then if you're just working on ball handling skills, that's going to be a lower risk. So using this tool, you can kind of identify which games you want to teach and when they would be appropriate. All right, so as we're closing, just a couple of things to keep in mind and a couple of priorities that you can kind of use moving forward. Number one, we want to make sure that health and PE are a part of learning, whether that's in person or social distancing. So just remember to really advocate for this. It's so important. We also want to empower and enable our classroom teachers to have active classrooms. They're going to see the students more than we are. So as much as they can have active classrooms and just talk about health and wellness, the better. And then the last one is really integrating health promotion messaging for all communication that's going out to your community and to your family. And Catch has a free resource available called Health at Home that has all of these messages typed out and ready to go for you. So if you go to catchinfo.org/health-at-home, it's a free resource that is available to you. There's two platforms there. There's an educator platform, and then there's also a parent platform that you can send your parents to. I do want to recommend that you go to that resource because there's lots of games that you can play there and all of that messaging that you can send out. If you'd like to know more, we do have some trainings that are in place. One is physical education, where we do a deeper dive into all three scenarios. There's also another one called Health and Meaningful Movement in the Classroom, which is all about integrating physical activity into your classroom. And then we have a whole child leadership training if you're really wanting to do a whole child program on your campus. And that brings us to the end. It was fast and furious. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much. That was absolutely great. I had a lot of takeaways myself. I was taking some serious notes. Can I just have all of the participants please type your name for the attendance in the chat? Thank you so much. So if we could just have our participants type their name in the chat.
Tilsa, just about your question earlier about the
Yes.
guidance for distance learning or doing physical activity. So the two Health at Home platforms, there's one that's parent facing and one that is educator facing. The distance learning resource is on the educator page. And then the parent tips, which kind of gives those kind of safety reminders and guidance for, parents to set up and to monitor activity.
Yeah.
That's on the Google Classroom, the parent one. Both are completely free, and the idea is to use both of those in concert with one another, not just in
it's the parent tips, and which one for the educator?
The distance learning guide.
Great. Yeah, because you know what I'm finding? I'm finding that, of course, you are talking about safety measures to children, but at the same time, I feel like the teachers need to constantly say, okay, these are the things that sometimes you forget. So that's why I was wondering, I wanted to create a checklist for our teachers. So I was just wondering if there was one already out there. So that's great.
Also on that Health at Home is an equipment replacement suggestion list. So, instead of, if kids need a ball for an activity, use balled up socks.
That's great.
Paper, if you need a striking implement, empty paper towel roll, all those kind of good things.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have stories of my son in empty paper towel rolls and little tangerines.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had that experience in our house. Okay, well, I think it's okay for us to end the meeting. This is our wrap up. This was wonderful. You know, I was actually very excited to preside over this one because I had been wanting to sign up for the trainings for Catch. So hopefully I'll be able to sign up for one of those trainings you were talking about at the end. So
Great.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. We'd love to see you down the road sometime.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was great. Great presentation.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I'm just going to stop sharing and just take us back to gallery. And then do we just, I think, am I the host or are you the host?
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to end the meeting.
Okay,
Hold
cool.
on 1 second.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks for being here, Janet. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
Have a good day.
All right. Bye.
Hello.